The November rain came down in sheets as Maya Chen stood on the front porch of the house she'd called home for 4 years, one hand pressed against her massive belly where her twin daughters were kicking in protest, the other clutching a garbage bag containing everything her husband had allowed her to take. 8 months pregnant, swollen ankles visible beneath her soaked maternity jeans, mascara running down her cheeks in black rivers. She looked exactly like what Derek's mother had called her an hour ago, pathetic. "You can't do this," Maya had said, her voice breaking as Derek's father, Richard Lawson, physically blocked the doorway while his wife Linda stood behind him with her arms crossed and a smile of pure satisfaction on her surgically enhanced face. "I'm 8 months pregnant, with twins, your grandchildren." "Our grandchildren?" Linda had laughed, the sound sharp and cruel. "Derek, tell her the truth." And Derek, her husband of 4 years, the man who'd held her hand during the first ultrasound when they discovered it was twins, the man who'd promised forever, had looked at her with the cold detachment of a stranger and said 5 words that shattered her world. "I want a paternity test." If you're already hooked on this story of ultimate betrayal and revenge, hit that subscribe button now, because what happens next will blow your mind. This pregnant woman has no idea her estranged mother is about to make an entrance that will destroy everyone who underestimated her. Now let's continue. That had been 30 minutes ago. Now Maya stood in the rain, watching through the front window as Derek's parents toasted champagne glasses with him, celebrating what they clearly viewed as his escape from a trap. Her phone was dead. Derek had canceled their family plan that morning. Her car keys were inside. Derek claimed the Lexus was in his name only. The joint bank account they'd shared showed a 0 balance when she checked it at lunch. Every cent transferred into his personal account before she'd even known what was happening. Maya shifted the garbage bag to her other hand and started walking. She had nowhere to go. Her college friends had drifted away over the years. Derek had always made comments about how they were bad influences or too dramatic. Her co-workers at the hospital where she'd worked as a medical researcher were professional acquaintances, not the kind of people you called when your life imploded. And her mother. Maya's throat tightened at the thought of Vivian Chen. They hadn't spoken in 6 years, not since that terrible fight when Maya was 22 and stupid and convinced she knew everything. She'd accused her mother of being cold, of caring more about her company than her own daughter, of trying to control every aspect of Maya's life. She'd screamed things she couldn't take back, packed her bags, and walked away from the Chen family fortune like it was poison. Vivian had stood in the doorway of their San Francisco penthouse, her face carefully blank in that way she had when she was hiding emotion, and said quietly, "When you're ready to stop being a child and start being my daughter, you know where to find me." Maya had never called. Pride and stubbornness had kept her away even when the loneliness became suffocating. Even when she'd met Derek and wanted her mother at the wedding. Even when the ultrasound had shown 2 heartbeats instead of 1 and she desperately wanted to share that joy with the only parent she had left. Now she was 30 minutes from the hospital, soaked to the bone, 8 months pregnant with twins, and had exactly $43 in her wallet and nowhere to sleep tonight. A contraction hit, not labor. Just Braxton Hicks. The practice contractions that had been coming and going for weeks, but strong enough to make her gasp and lean against a brick wall for support. The twins were active, rolling and kicking like they sensed their mother's distress. Maya pressed both hands to her belly, tears mixing with rain on her face. "I'm sorry," she whispered to her daughters. "I'm so sorry. I thought I was protecting you by staying away from Grandma's world. I thought we'd be safe here, that Derek loved us. I was wrong about everything." A black Mercedes pulled up beside her, its window rolling down to reveal an elderly woman with kind eyes and an expensive wool coat. "Dear God, are you all right? You shouldn't be out in this weather. Can I call someone for you?" Maya shook her head, not trusting her voice. If she spoke, she'd break completely. "At least let me drive you somewhere. A hospital? A shelter? You're pregnant, sweetheart. You need to be safe." The word safe made something crack in Maya's chest. She'd thought she was safe. She'd thought marrying Derek Lawson, becoming part of his respectable middle-class family, was the path to stability and normalcy. She'd thought hiding who she really was, Maya Chen, daughter of Dr. Vivian Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Biopharmaceuticals, would protect her from the gold diggers and social climbers who'd plagued her privileged childhood. "There's a women's shelter," Maya managed to say, her voice hoarse. "Mercy House. It's about 2 miles from here. Get in the car right now," the woman said firmly. "I'm not letting you walk 2 miles in a thunderstorm while you're 8 months pregnant." Maya climbed into the Mercedes, sinking into heated leather seats that felt like heaven after the cold rain. The woman handed her a soft blanket from the back seat, and Maya wrapped it around herself with trembling hands. "I'm Margaret Ross," the woman said as she pulled back into traffic. "And before you ask, no, I'm not going to judge you or ask intrusive questions. I volunteer at Mercy House twice a week. I know that women end up there for 1,000 different reasons, and none of them are simple." "Thank you," Maya whispered. "I'm Maya, and these are." She pressed her hand to her belly where one twin was kicking against her ribs. "These are my daughters, due in 4 weeks." "Twins?" Margaret's voice filled with warmth. "How wonderful. And how terrifying, I imagine, given your current circumstances." The shelter appeared through the rain-streaked windshield. A converted Victorian house, with warm lights glowing in the windows and a sign that read Mercy House. Safe harbor for women and children. Margaret parked and helped Maya gather her meager belongings, walking her to the front door, with a protective arm around her shoulders. Inside, the house smelled like soup and laundry detergent, and something that might have been hope. A young woman with purple hair and tired eyes sat at the reception desk, looking up with practiced concern when they entered. "Hi, I'm Sarah. You're here for intake." She pulled out a clipboard and pen, her movements efficient but gentle. "We have space tonight. Let me just get some basic information." Maya answered questions in a monotone voice. "Name, age, how many months pregnant, any medical conditions, emergency contact." "Emergency contact," Maya repeated, staring at the blank line on the form. She thought about Derek, who'd just thrown her out. Derek's parents, who'd cheered while he did it. Her college roommate Claire, who'd moved to London 3 years ago. And, finally, inevitably, she thought about her mother. "I don't have one," she said finally. Sarah's expression suggested she'd heard that answer too many times before. "That's okay. We'll leave it blank for now. Let me show you to your room." The room was small but clean, 2 twin beds, a shared bathroom, a window that looked out over a rain-soaked garden. Maya's roommate was a woman in her early 20s who introduced herself as Jessica, mentioned she was escaping an abusive ex, and then mercifully put in earbuds and turned her attention to her phone, giving Maya the privacy to fall apart. Maya sat on the narrow bed and finally, let herself cry. Not the careful, controlled tears she'd shed in front of Derek's family, but huge, gasping sobs that shook her whole body and probably terrified her unborn daughters with the force of her grief. She cried for her marriage, for her naivety, for the life she'd tried to build outside her mother's shadow. She cried because she was 8 months pregnant with twins and sleeping in a shelter. She cried because Derek had looked at her, at his wife, who'd stood by him through his failed business ventures and his mother's constant criticism and his father's disappointed sighs, and called her a liar. When the tears finally stopped, Maya felt hollowed out but strangely clear-headed. She pulled out her dead phone and stared at it, remembering the number she'd memorized as a child, the one that connected directly to her mother's private line. The number she'd never deleted from her contacts, even after 6 years of stubborn silence. Tomorrow, she thought. Tomorrow, she'd find a way to charge her phone. Tomorrow, she'd make the call she should have made years ago. Tomorrow, she'd swallow her pride and admit that she'd been wrong about everything. But tonight, she had to survive. She had to keep her daughters safe. She had to find the strength to take the next step, and the one after that. Maya Chen had spent 6 years proving she didn't need her mother's money or influence or protection. 6 years, building a life based on her own merit, her own choices, her own carefully constructed independence. It had taken Derek Lawson and his toxic family exactly 4 hours to destroy all of it. But what Derek didn't know, what his parents didn't know, what no one except the lawyers handling the estrangement paperwork knew, was that Dr. Vivian Chen wasn't just some distant, estranged mother who'd let her stubborn daughter walk away. Vivian Chen was the founder of one of America's most powerful biopharmaceutical companies. She had a net worth of $4.2 billion. She had connections in every major hospital system in North America. And she had a team of private investigators who'd been quietly monitoring her daughter's life for 6 years, providing monthly reports that Vivian read with the desperate attention of a mother who'd lost everything that mattered. The investigators' latest report sat on Vivian's desk at her San Francisco headquarters at that exact moment. Subject's husband initiated divorce proceedings. Subject evicted from marital home. Subject 8 months pregnant with twin girls. Current location: Mercy House Women's Shelter, Portland, Oregon. Vivian had read it 3 times before her assistant's voice came through the intercom. "Dr. Chen, your helicopter is ready whenever you are." Maya didn't know it yet, but her mother was already in the air, flying through the November storm with a kind of cold fury that had built an empire and destroyed competitors. The Lawson family had made the mistake of their lives when they threw out Vivian Chen's pregnant daughter. They just didn't know it yet. Maya woke at 3 a.m. to the sound of one of her twins kicking against her bladder with enough force to make her gasp. The shelter room was dark except for the glow of Jessica's phone screen across the narrow space between their beds. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving only the occasional drip from the eaves and the distant sound of traffic on wet streets. She needed to pee again, always again when you were 8 months pregnant with twins. But the thought of getting up, of acknowledging that this was real, that she was actually sleeping in a women's shelter, felt impossible. Maya stayed in bed, her hands on her belly, feeling her daughters move and roll like they were fighting for space in the cramped quarters of her womb. Baby A and Baby B, the ultrasound technician had called them during the anatomy scan at 20 weeks. Maya and Derek had laughed, holding hands in the darkened exam room, watching the screen show 2 perfect little faces in profile, 2 sets of fingers and toes, 2 heartbeats flickering like stars. "We're going to name them after our mothers," Derek had said that night, his hand resting on Maya's barely there bump as they lay in bed, Linda and... He'd paused, and Maya had felt her chest tighten. "What was your mother's name again? You never talk about her." "Vivian," Maya had whispered. "Her name is Vivian. Linda and Vivian Lawson." Derek had tested the names, smiling. "Perfect." Maya had said nothing, feeling the weight of her deception settle heavier on her shoulders. Not Vivian Chen. Not the name that appeared in Forbes magazine and Wall Street Journal articles about biopharmaceutical breakthroughs. Just Vivian, a ghost from Maya's carefully buried past. Now, lying in a shelter bed with her daughters kicking against her ribs, Maya wondered what she'd been thinking. How had she believed she could build a life separate from who she really was? How had she convinced herself that hiding her identity would somehow make her more authentic, more real? The answer, she knew, was wrapped up in being 22 and angry and certain that her mother cared more about quarterly earnings than her own daughter's happiness. Maya finally gave in to her bladder's demands and made her way to the shared bathroom, moving slowly in the darkness. Her reflection in the fluorescent-lit mirror was brutal, swollen face from crying, hair matted and frizzy from the rain, dark circles under her eyes that made her look 10 years older than her 28 years. The hospital scrubs she'd been wearing under her coat, the only clothes she had besides what was in her garbage bag, were wrinkled and stained. She thought about Derek seeing her like this and felt a flash of humiliation followed immediately by rage. Derek, who'd gained 30 pounds since their wedding and never once mentioned wanting to improve his appearance. Derek, whose idea of dressing up was putting on a polo shirt instead of a t-shirt. Derek, who had the audacity to look at her 8 months pregnant with his twins and call her unattractive, too demanding, probably cheating. "The babies might not even be mine," he'd said that afternoon, his voice carrying the rehearsed quality of someone who'd practiced the line. "You were always at that hospital, always working late with your colleague Dr. Rahman. How do I know you weren't?" "Stop," Linda Lawson had interrupted, placing a manicured hand on her son's arm. "Derek, you don't need to explain yourself to her. She knows what she did." Except, Maya hadn't done anything. She'd been faithful, devoted, Stupidly in love with a man who'd apparently been planning his exit for months, while she'd been preparing a nursery and reading books about raising twins and believing in a future that never existed. Back in the shelter room, Maya pulled out the garbage bag and inventoried what she had. 3 pairs of maternity underwear, 2 bras, 1 extra pair of maternity jeans, 4 t-shirts, a sweatshirt with a coffee stain, her hospital ID badge, a worn copy of What to Expect When You're Expecting that she'd highlighted until the pages were more yellow than white. And at the bottom, wrapped in a silk scarf she'd owned since high school, a photograph. Maya hadn't looked at the photo in 6 years, but she pulled it out now, unfolding the scarf with careful hands. The image showed 2 women, one in her early 50s, elegant in a tailored suit, her dark hair pulled back in a precise bun, the other barely 16, wearing a soccer uniform and grinning with the unconscious confidence of someone who'd never been truly hurt. Vivian and Maya Chen, taken at Maya's prep school graduation ceremony, before the fights about college majors and career paths. Before Maya had accused her mother of being an ice queen who treated her own daughter like another employee. Before Vivian had said, "You're acting like a spoiled child who doesn't understand the first thing about responsibility." They'd both been right and both been wrong, Maya realized now. She had been spoiled, raised in penthouse apartments and private schools, never wanting for anything material. But Vivian had also been distant, always working, always traveling, always choosing the company over parent-teacher conferences and soccer games and mother-daughter time. "I built this empire for you," Vivian had shouted during their last fight, her famous composure finally cracking. "Everything I've done, every sacrifice I've made, has been to give you opportunities I never had. And you throw it in my face like I've committed some crime by being successful. You built it for yourself," Maya had shot back. "Don't pretend this was ever about me. I was just another asset to manage, another item on your endless to-do list." The words had hung between them like poison. Vivian's face had gone carefully blank, that terrible mask she wore when she was hurt but refused to show it. "Fine," she'd said quietly. "If that's what you believe, then you clearly don't know me at all. When you're ready to see me as a person instead of a stereotype, you know where to find me." Maya had walked out that night and never looked back, convinced she was taking a brave stand for her independence. She'd gotten a job as a research assistant at Portland General Hospital, using only her bachelor's degree and her own merit. She'd rented a tiny apartment in a neighborhood her mother would have considered dangerous. She'd met Derek at a hospital charity event, been charmed by his normalcy, his middle-class background, his parents who had dinner together every Sunday and argued about sports teams instead of stock prices. "You're different from other women I've dated," Derek had said on their 3rd date. "You're not impressed by money or status. You just want something real." Maya had fallen for it completely, believing she'd found the authentic life she'd been searching for. She'd married him in a simple courthouse ceremony with his parents as witnesses, wearing a dress from Nordstrom Rack instead of the designer gown her mother would have insisted on. She'd been so proud of her independence, her ability to build a life without Chen family money or influence. And it had all been a lie. Not Derek's lie, her own. She'd been playing dress-up in someone else's life, pretending to be someone she wasn't, and the moment real pressure hit, the whole performance had collapsed. A knock on the door made Maya jump. Sarah, the intake coordinator, poked her head in. "Maya? Sorry to bother you so early, but there's someone here to see you." Maya's heart stopped. "Who?" "She says her name is Dr. Vivian Chen." Sarah's expression was confused. Well, she's very insistent. And she arrived in a helicopter, which is not something that happens here usually. Or ever, actually. Maya's hands started shaking. "My mother's here? Your mother?" Sarah's eyes widened. "The woman who showed up with a security team and a medical bag and demanded to know if you'd been seen by a doctor is your mother?" Maya struggled to her feet, her mind racing. Vivian was here. Somehow, impossibly, her mother had found her within hours of her being kicked out. I should. She's in the common room." "Maya, I have to ask, are you safe with her? We have protocols about—" "I'm safe," Maya interrupted. "She's not." We're estranged, but she'd never hurt me. She's just controlling, overwhelming, the most formidable person Maya had ever known. She's concerned. The walk down the shelter's hallway felt endless. Maya could hear voices from the common room. Vivian's crisp, authoritative tone cutting through the early morning quiet like a knife through butter. I don't care about your protocols. My daughter is 8 months pregnant with twins and was thrown out of her home in a thunderstorm. I need to see her now. Maya reached the doorway and stopped, taking in the scene. Vivian Chen stood in the middle of the room like a general surveying a battlefield. At 54, she was still beautiful in that sharp, intimidating way that made people stand up straighter in her presence. She wore a black cashmere coat that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her hair pulled back in her signature bun. Diamond studs in her ears that caught the fluorescent light. Behind her stood 2 security guards in dark suits and a woman in medical scrubs carrying what looked like a fully equipped medical bag. "Mom," Maya said, her voice barely above a whisper. Vivian turned, and Maya watched her mother's carefully controlled expression crack for just a second, revealing something raw and devastated underneath. Then the mask was back, but her voice shook slightly as she said, "Maya, thank God." They stared at each other across the common room. 6 years of silence and stubbornness and mutual hurt hanging between them like fog. Maya waited for the lecture. The "I told you so," the recrimination she deserved. Instead, Vivian took 3 steps forward and wrapped her arms around her daughter with a fierceness that knocked the breath from Maya's lungs. "I'm here," Vivian whispered against Maya's hair. "I'm here, baby girl, and I'm never letting anyone hurt you again." Maya started crying then, huge gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Vivian held her tighter, one hand cradling the back of Maya's head the way she used to when Maya was small and scared of thunderstorms. The twins kicked between them, and Maya felt her mother's hand shift to press against her belly, feeling the movement. "My granddaughters," Vivian said softly. "I thought I'd never get to meet them. I'm so sorry," Maya choked out. "Mom, I'm so sorry. You were right about everything. I was spoiled and stupid, and—" "Stop." Vivian pulled back just enough to look Maya in the face, her own eyes bright with unshed tears. "We'll talk about the past later. Right now, we need to focus on getting you and my granddaughters somewhere safe. Dr. Lee," she gestured to the woman with the medical bag, "is going to check your vitals and make sure the babies are okay. Then we're going back to San Francisco. I can't just leave." Derek filed for divorce. "There are legal—" "I have lawyers handling that as we speak," Vivian interrupted. "Maya, do you trust me?" The question hung in the air. 6 years ago, Maya would have said no without hesitation. Now, standing in a women's shelter at 3:30 inches the morning, 8 months pregnant and with nowhere else to go, she nodded slowly. "Yes." "Good." Vivian's voice took on the commanding tone that had made her one of the most feared negotiators in pharmaceutical industry. "Because Derek Lawson and his family are about to learn what happens when they target a Chen woman." Across town, Derek Lawson woke in his childhood bedroom with a splitting headache and the vague sense that he'd made a terrible mistake. The champagne celebration with his parents had lasted until midnight, his mother toasting to his freedom, and his father clapping him on the back and saying he'd dodged a bullet. But in the gray light of dawn, lying in the twin bed he'd slept in through high school, Derek found himself thinking about Maya. The way she'd looked standing in the rain, her hand on her belly, her face destroyed. The way she'd said, "You can't do this," like she actually believed he might change his mind. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. "Are you awake? We need to discuss the divorce strategy. Mitchell wants to meet at 10 a.m. Mitchell Stevens was the family attorney, the one who'd helped Derek's father navigate his business bankruptcy 3 years ago. Competent enough for contract disputes and small claims, but Derek suddenly wondered if he was equipped to handle a divorce involving twins and pregnancy and the kind of accusations his mother had been making about Maya's fidelity. Derek scrolled through his phone, looking at photos from the past 4 years. Maya, at their wedding, glowing with happiness. Maya's first ultrasound, when they discovered it was twins, both of them crying with joy. Maya painting the nursery last month. singing off-key to the babies about what color they should make the walls. Had she really been cheating? The accusations had come from his mother, who'd claimed she'd seen Maya having lunch with Dr. Rahman, her colleague, looking too comfortable together. Linda had shown him photos taken from across the restaurant. Maya, laughing at something Rahman said, his hand touching her arm briefly. "She's using you," Linda had whispered in his ear, poisoning every interaction. "She got pregnant to trap you. And now she's probably sleeping with that doctor while carrying babies that might not even be yours." Derek had wanted to believe her. Believing her meant he wasn't the bad guy for feeling suffocated, for resenting how much attention Maya needed during the pregnancy, for missing the days when she'd been thin and available and not constantly talking about nursery furniture and prenatal vitamins. But looking at the photos now, Derek felt something cold settle in his stomach. Maya's smile in every picture was genuine, unguarded, filled with love, for him, for their coming daughters, for the life they'd been building together. What had he done? His phone rang, and Derek answered without checking the caller ID. "Hello? Mr. Derek Lawson." The voice was female, crisp, professional. "This is Jennifer Park, calling from Chen Biopharmaceuticals Legal Department. I'm calling to inform you that we're filing a motion for emergency custody evaluation and seeking full medical documentation regarding your wife's prenatal care and current health status." Derek sat up so fast he got dizzy. "What? Who is this?" "Chen Biopharmaceuticals. We represent Dr. Vivian Chen, and, by extension, her daughter, Maya Chen. I understand you filed for divorce yesterday and evicted Mrs. Chen from your shared residence, while she was 8 months pregnant with twins. We find this concerning, from both a legal and medical standpoint." "Maya's last name is Lawson," Derek said stupidly, "and I don't know any Dr. Chen." There was a pause on the other end, and Derek could hear papers rustling. "Mr. Lawson, were you aware that your wife is the sole heir to Chen Biopharmaceuticals? That her mother, Dr. Vivian Chen, founded one of the most successful pharmaceutical companies in North America? That the Chen family has a net worth of approximately $4.2 billion? The room tilted. Derek gripped his phone so hard his knuckles went white. "That's not possible. Maya worked as a research assistant. She made $40,000 a year. Her apartment before we met was in a bad neighborhood. She never had money for anything. Mrs. Chen was estranged from her family," Jennifer Park said with the patience of someone explaining something to a child. "She chose to live independently. That doesn't change who she is or what she's entitled to. And Mr. Lawson, it certainly doesn't change the fact that you evicted a Chen family member, a pregnant Chen family member, into a November rainstorm." Derek's door burst open. His mother stood there in her bathrobe, her face pale. "Derek, turn on the news. Channel 7, right now." Derek fumbled for the remote, switching on the TV mounted on his wall. The morning news showed a helicopter landing on what looked like the roof of a building, and the caption read, "Billionaire CEO Dr. Vivian Chen makes emergency trip to Portland. Sources say her estranged daughter was evicted while pregnant." The news anchor's voice was grave. "Developing story this morning as Dr. Vivian Chen, founder and CEO of Chen Biopharmaceuticals, was spotted arriving in Portland via private helicopter at 3 a.m. Sources close to the family confirm that Chen's daughter, who has been estranged from the family for 6 years, was recently evicted from her home by her husband despite being 8 months pregnant with twins. We'll have more on this story as it develops." "Oh my God," Linda Lawson whispered. "Oh my God. Derek, what have you done?" Derek stared at the screen, watching footage of Vivian Chen emerging from the helicopter, elegant, powerful, flanked by security, looking like exactly what she was, someone with the resources to destroy anyone who threatened her family. "Mr. Lawson," Jennifer Park's voice came through the phone, which Derek had forgotten he was still holding. "My client would like to extend an offer to meet this morning to discuss the situation. She believes there may have been some misunderstanding about her daughter's background and would like to clarify matters before taking further legal action." "Further legal action," Derek croaked. "Prenuptial agreements signed under false pretenses, theft of community property, abandonment of a pregnant spouse, potential fraud. Jennifer listed the charges like she was reading a grocery list. Dr. Chen is prepared to be reasonable, Mr. Lawson. But that window closes in approximately, she paused, 6 hours. I suggest you and your family meet with us at 10 a.m. at the Pearl District Marriott. Conference Room B. The call ended. Derek sat on his childhood bed, watching the news replay footage of the helicopter, of Maya's mother arriving like an avenging angel, and felt his entire world crumbling around him. He'd married Maya Chen. Not Maya, nobody from nowhere. Maya Chen, daughter of one of the most powerful women in American business. And he'd thrown her out into a rainstorm while she was pregnant with twins. Downstairs, he could hear his father swearing loudly. The phone was ringing off the hook, and Derek realized, with sudden, terrible clarity, that the biggest mistake of his life wasn't marrying Maya. It was losing her. Dr. Lee turned out to be an obstetrician who specialized in high-risk pregnancies and had apparently been on Vivian Chen's personal medical team for the past decade. She set up her portable equipment in the shelter's small private office, moving with the efficient calm of someone who delivered babies in far worse conditions than a women's shelter common room. Let's take a look at these little ones, Dr. Lee said, helping Maya onto the examination table that had been brought in. When was your last prenatal appointment? 3 days ago, Maya replied, lying back as Dr. Lee squeezed cold gel onto her enormous belly. Dr. Morrison at Portland General said everything looked good. The twins were measuring at 37 weeks, head down, and healthy. Dr. Susan Morrison. Vivian asked sharply from her position by the door, where she'd been typing rapid-fire messages on her phone. She's excellent. I've worked with her on several research projects. Of course, her mother knew Maya's obstetrician. Of course, Vivian had connections at every major hospital in North America. Maya closed her eyes as the ultrasound wand pressed against her belly, the familiar whooshing sound of fetal heartbeats filling the small room. There's baby A, Dr. Lee murmured, adjusting the screen. Good strong heartbeat. And baby B is. She moved the wand lower. There she is, both looking perfect. Heart rates in the 140 seconds. Good movement, plenty of fluid. She looked up at Maya with kind eyes. Medically speaking, you and your daughters are doing remarkably well considering the stress you've been under. Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. They're okay? You're sure? I'm sure. Doctor. Lee cleaned the gel off Maya's belly with gentle hands. But I'm concerned about your blood pressure. It's elevated, not dangerously so. But given that you're carrying twins and you've just experienced severe emotional trauma, I want to monitor you closely. Any headaches, visual disturbances, swelling in your hands or feet beyond what's normal? My feet are always swollen at this point, Maya said, looking down at her puffy ankles. And I have a headache, but I thought that was from crying. Could be. Dr. Lee pulled out a blood pressure cuff for a second reading. Or it could be the beginning of preeclampsia, which is more common with twins and stress. Dr. Chen, she addressed Vivian directly. I'd recommend 24-hour monitoring for the next few days, just to be safe. If Maya's blood pressure continues to climb, we may need to consider early delivery. Vivian's face went pale. How early? The twins are already at full-term size and lung maturity. If necessary, we could safely deliver within the next week. But let's not borrow trouble. Rest, reduce stress, proper nutrition, and monitoring may be all Maya needs. She'll have all of that, Vivian said firmly. She turned to one of the security guards hovering outside the door. Marcus, call Dr. Morrison. I want her at the house within 2 hours for a full consultation. And contact Dr. Stevens at UCSF. I want a neonatologist on standby just in case. Maya sat up slowly, her head spinning slightly. Mom, you don't need to mobilize an entire medical team. Dr. Lee said I'm okay. Dr. Lee said you need monitoring. Vivian's voice was steel-wrapped in silk. You'll get monitoring. And everything else you need. Sarah, the shelter coordinator, knocked softly on the door frame. I'm sorry to interrupt, but there are reporters outside. A lot of them, and someone from the mayor's office called asking if we needed additional security. Vivian sighed, Pinching the bridge of her nose in a gesture Maya remembered from childhood, her mother's single tell that she was dealing with something frustrating. I should have anticipated this. The helicopter arrival was perhaps too dramatic. You think? Maya said, and despite everything, felt a small laugh bubble up. Mom, you landed on a building in a helicopter at 3 a.m. Of course, there are reporters. I was concerned about you, Vivian said simply. She moved to sit beside Maya on the examination table, her hand finding her daughter's. Maya, when I got the report that you'd been evicted, that you were 8 months pregnant and sleeping in a shelter, I wasn't thinking about optics or media strategy. I was thinking about getting to my daughter as fast as humanly possible. What report? Maya frowned. How did you even know where I was? Vivian was quiet for a long moment. I've had investigators monitoring your safety for the past 6 years. You what? Not invasively, Vivian said quickly. Just making sure you were okay. Making sure Derek was treating you well, that you had what you needed, that you were safe. Her voice dropped. I know you wanted independence, Maya. I know you wanted to build a life separate from the Chen name. But you're my daughter, my only child. Did you really think I could just let you disappear without knowing if you were all right? Maya stared at her mother, emotions warring inside her chest. Part of her wanted to be angry about the invasion of privacy. But a larger part, the part that had been terrified and alone in the rain just hours ago, felt something warm and complicated that might have been relief. You've been watching me for 6 years? Monthly reports, Vivian admitted. Nothing intrusive. Just confirmation that you were employed, healthy, safe. When you got married, I had Derek thoroughly investigated. Clean record, steady job, seemed to genuinely care about you. Her jaw tightened. Obviously, my investigators missed some crucial personality flaws. He wasn't always like this, Maya said softly. Or maybe he was, and I didn't see it. His mother, Linda, she's been poisoning everything for months. Telling Derek I was cheating with my colleague, that the twins might not be his, that I was trying to trap him. Were you cheating? Vivian asked bluntly. No. Maya's voice rose. Dr. Rahman is gay, married to his husband of 10 years, and was helping me prepare a research presentation. That's it. We had lunch twice to discuss the project. Linda took photos from across the restaurant and made it look like something it wasn't. Vivian pulled out her phone and typed something quickly. What's Dr. Rahman's full name? Khalid Rahman. Why? Because I'm having my team contact him for a statement. And his husband. And anyone else who can verify your professional relationship. Vivian's eyes were hard. Derek Lawson wants a paternity test? We'll give him a paternity test. Administered by the most respected genetic testing facility in the country, with results that will be admissible in any court in America. And when it proves, beyond any doubt, that those babies are his, I'm going to make sure he regrets every accusation he made. Maya felt something shift in her chest, a mixture of gratitude and old resentment. This is what you do, isn't it? Solve everything with money and power and connections? Yes, Vivian said without apology. Because money and power and connections work, Maya. They work better than pride or principles, or pretending you're something you're not. She squeezed Maya's hand. I know you think I'm controlling. I know you believe I care more about the company than about you. But you need to understand something. What? Vivian was quiet for a moment, her carefully maintained composure cracking slightly. I built Chen Biopharmaceuticals for you. Not for myself, for you. Maya blinked. What are you talking about? You started the company before I was born. I started it when I was 6 months pregnant with you. Vivian corrected. Your father had just died, car accident, drunk driver, gone in an instant. I was 26 years old, widowed, pregnant, with a PhD in biochemistry, and about $8,000 to my name. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with old pain. Do you know what people told me? They told me to get rid of you, to focus on my career, that I couldn't possibly be a single mother and a scientist and have any chance at success. Maya stared at her mother, seeing her for the first time not as the invincible CEO she'd grown up with, but as a young widow facing impossible choices. So I decided to prove them wrong, Vivian continued. I took my research. The work your father and I had been developing together, on targeted drug delivery systems, and I turned it into a company. I worked 18-hour days while you were sleeping. I took you to the lab in a baby carrier. I built that empire specifically so you would never, ever have to depend on anyone else for your security or your future. But you were never there, Maya whispered, the old hurt surfacing. Soccer games, school plays, parent-teacher conferences, you were always working. I was building your inheritance, Vivian said fiercely. I was making sure that no man could ever throw you out into the rain like Derek Lawson just did. I was creating a foundation so strong that you could choose any life you wanted, including choosing to walk away from it entirely, which you did. Her voice softened, and even then, even when you told me I was a terrible mother who cared more about money than her own daughter, I kept building. Because that's what mothers do, Maya. We build fortresses around our children, whether they appreciate it or not. Maya felt tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry, Mom, I'm so sorry for what I said. I was 22 and stupid, and I thought I knew everything. You were 22 and hurt, Vivian corrected gently. And I wasn't blameless. I should have delegated more. I should have made you a priority instead of assuming you'd understand that everything I did was for you. She wiped Maya's tears with her thumb. But we can't change the past. We can only decide what happens next. What happens next? Maya repeated. Vivian's expression hardened into something that reminded Maya exactly why her mother was one of the most feared negotiators in the pharmaceutical industry. Next, we remind Derek Lawson and his family that they just declared war on the wrong woman. But first, she stood, helping Maya to her feet. We get you somewhere safe. My jet is waiting at the airport. We'll be back in San Francisco within 2 hours. I can't just leave, Maya protested. The divorce, the legal issues. My lawyers will handle everything from San Francisco. Oregon or California. It doesn't matter where you file from, we have jurisdiction issues to resolve anyway given that you were married in California but currently reside in Oregon. And frankly, I'd prefer my granddaughters to be born in San Francisco, where I have the best neonatal ICU in the country on speed dial. Dr. Lee packed up her equipment. I agree with Dr. Chen. Given your elevated blood pressure and the stress of this situation, removing you from the immediate environment is medically advisable. I'll accompany you on the flight and continue monitoring. Maya looked around the shelter office, at the peeling paint and second-hand furniture, and the women in the hallway who didn't have billionaire mothers to rescue them. What about them? The other women here? Vivian followed her gaze. What about them? They don't have private jets and security teams. They're just as scared as I was last night, just as vulnerable. What happens to them? Something shifted in Vivian's expression: surprise, then pride, then determination. She pulled out her phone and dialed. Jennifer, add Mercy House Women's Shelter to the Chen Foundation's funding priorities. I want a full assessment of their needs and a donation package that will expand their services and security. Also, establish a scholarship fund for residents who want to continue their education or job training. She paused, listening. I don't care what it costs. Make it happen. She ended the call and looked at Maya. Satisfied? Maya felt something warm bloom in her chest. Thank you. Don't thank me. You reminded me that not everyone has the advantages we have. Your father used to say the same thing, that with great resources comes great responsibility. Vivian smiled slightly. He would have loved you, Maya. And he would have been furious at Derek Lawson. They were interrupted by Marcus, the security guard, who appeared in the doorway with an urgent expression. Dr. Chen, we have a situation. Derek Lawson and his parents just arrived. They're asking to speak with Maya. Vivian's expression went cold. Absolutely not. Mom, Maya started. They threw you out into a storm while you were pregnant with twins. They stole your joint savings. They accused you of infidelity with zero evidence. They called you a liar and a cheat, and God knows what else. Vivian's voice could have cut glass. They don't get access to you until they've been through my lawyers, my security team, and approximately 3 layers of hell. Maya wanted to argue, but the truth was, she didn't want to see Derek. Didn't want to hear whatever excuse he'd concocted or see his mother's smug face or deal with his father's patronizing disappointment. What should we tell them? Nothing, Vivian said firmly. She turned to Marcus. Inform the Lawsons that Maya is under medical care and unavailable for conversation. Provide them with Jennifer Park's contact information and tell them all communication will go through our legal team. If they refuse to leave, call the police and have them removed for harassment. Understood. Marcus disappeared to deliver the message. Through the window, Maya could see a crowd gathering outside the shelter, reporters with cameras, curious neighbors, and what looked like Derek's silver Honda Civic parked illegally on the sidewalk. She watched her mother-in-law emerge from the car wearing a designer knockoff dress and too much makeup, her face twisted in an expression that might have been concern but looked more like calculation. She's scared, Maya said softly. She should be, Vivian replied without sympathy. Linda Lawson coordinated a campaign to destroy her pregnant daughter-in-law's marriage. She manipulated her son into abandoning his wife and unborn children. And now she's about to discover that actions have consequences. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. Dr. Chen? There's also someone here from Channel 7 News asking if you'll give a statement. And the mayor's office called again. And she consulted a piece of paper. 3 different law firms have called offering pro bono representation. The Portland Women's Coalition wants to discuss domestic violence resources, and someone from the governor's office is on hold. Vivian raised an eyebrow. The governor? She says she's a friend of yours from college, Kate Morrison? Katie. Vivian smiled for the first time since arriving. Tell her I'll call her back within the hour. As for the media, she thought for a moment. I'll give one brief statement outside in 10 minutes. That should satisfy them and get them to disperse so we can leave without turning this into a circus. Maya watched her mother transform into CEO mode, shoulders back, expression calm but authoritative. Every inch the powerful executive who'd built an empire from nothing. She'd seen this version of Vivian countless times growing up, but she'd never appreciated what it actually meant. Her mother wasn't cold or unfeeling. She was armored, protected by layers of professionalism and power that she'd built specifically so no one could hurt her the way losing Maya's father had hurt her. I'm sorry, Maya said again, for leaving, for staying away for 6 years, for not understanding what you were trying to do. Vivian turned, and for just a moment, the armor cracked. Oh, baby girl. You don't need to apologize for wanting independence. You need to apologize for not calling me the moment Derek started treating you badly. You need to apologize for thinking I wouldn't drop everything, the company, the money, all of it to make sure you were safe. Would you have? Maya asked. Dropped everything? I just did, Vivian replied simply. She gestured to the chaos outside, to the medical team and security and lawyers all mobilized within hours of a single phone call. I was in the middle of finalizing a $2 billion merger. I walked out of the boardroom mid-presentation, got on my helicopter, and flew through a November storm to get to you. So yes, Maya, I would drop everything. I have dropped everything. Because you're my daughter, and these, she placed her hand on Maya's belly where the twins were kicking, are my granddaughters. And nothing matters more than family. Maya pulled her mother into a hug, feeling 6 years of hurt and stubbornness and misunderstanding start to dissolve. They weren't fixed, yet there were too many old wounds, too many conversations still to have, but they were here, together. And that was a start. Okay, Maya said, pulling back and wiping her eyes. Okay, I trust you. Tell me what happens next. Vivian's expression shifted into something that reminded Maya of a chess player setting up a winning move. Next, we go to San Francisco. We get you and my granddaughters settled somewhere safe with round-the-clock medical monitoring. And then, her smile was sharp enough to cut. Then, we have a conversation with Derek Lawson and his family about what it costs to underestimate a Chen woman. Outside the shelter, Derek stood next to his parents, watching his mother argue with a security guard who looked like he could bench press a car. Linda's voice was climbing toward hysteria as she demanded access to Maya, while Richard Lawson stood silent, his face pale as he stared at his phone. Dad, what is it? Derek asked. Richard turned the phone so Derek could see the screen. It showed a Forbes article from 3 years ago, Dr. Vivian Chen. How one woman built a $4.2 billion empire, from grief and determination. The photo showed Maya's mother standing in front of Chen Biopharmaceuticals headquarters, powerful, elegant, and utterly intimidating. The article detailed her rise from widowed PhD student to pharmaceutical industry titan, her groundbreaking research on targeted drug delivery systems, her reputation as a fierce negotiator who never lost a deal. "We're screwed," Richard said quietly. "Derek, what were you thinking? What was Linda thinking? You kicked out Vivian Chen's daughter." "I didn't know," Derek's voice cracked. "Maya never told me. She lied about her entire background." "She didn't lie," Richard corrected grimly. "She chose not to tell you about her family's wealth. There's a difference. And now her mother, who, according to this article, once sued a Fortune 500 company into bankruptcy for patent infringement, is going to come after us with everything she has." Linda finally gave up arguing with the security guard and stormed back to the car. "This is ridiculous. Maya's being dramatic. She'll come to her senses and realize she needs Derek. She has nowhere else to go." "Mom," Derek said slowly, "Maya's mother is a billionaire. She has everywhere to go." "Billionaire?" Linda's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the blood draining from her face. "What are you talking about?" Derek showed her the Forbes article. Watched his mother read it once, twice, 3 times, as the implications sank in. "That can't be right. Maya worked as a research assistant. She wore cheap clothes. She never had money for anything nice." "Because she was estranged from her family," Richard said. "Because she wanted to live independently." "Jesus Christ, Linda, what have you done? What have you convinced our son to do?" Linda's face hardened. "I saved him from a gold digger." "A gold digger?" Richard's voice climbed. "The woman whose family could buy our house with pocket change? The woman who chose to live on a research assistant's salary rather than ask her billionaire mother for money? That's your definition of a gold digger." The shelter door opened and Vivian Chen emerged flanked by security. She moved with a kind of confidence that made every reporter surge forward, cameras flashing. She held up one hand and the crowd quieted immediately. "I'll make one brief statement," Vivian said, her voice carrying clearly. "My daughter was evicted from her home last night while 8 months pregnant with twins. She sought shelter at this facility, which provided her with safety and dignity when she needed it most. The Chen Foundation will be making a substantial donation to Mercy House and other domestic violence resources in Portland." She paused, her eyes finding the Lawsons in the crowd. "As for the circumstances that led to my daughter's situation, those matters are being handled by our legal team. I have no further comment at this time." She turned to go back inside, then paused and looked directly at Derek. "Mr. Lawson, my attorneys will be in contact. I suggest you retain appropriate counsel." Then she was gone, leaving Derek standing in a crowd of reporters who immediately turned their cameras on him, shouting questions about abandoning his pregnant wife, about the divorce, about whether he'd known about Maya's family background. Linda grabbed Derek's arm. "Don't say anything. We need to call Mitchell immediately. This is going to be expensive." "Expensive?" Derek stared at his mother. "Mom, she's worth billions. We can't afford to fight someone with that kind of money. We can't afford lawyers who could go up against Chen Biopharmaceuticals' legal team. We can't afford any of this." Richard was already walking back to the car. "We're calling Mitchell. Then we're figuring out how to apologize to Vivian Chen before she destroys us." "Apologize?" Linda shrieked. "We did nothing wrong." But Derek was remembering the look on Maya's face when he'd handed her that garbage bag. The way she'd pressed her hand to her belly, protecting their daughters even while he was throwing her out. The way she'd whispered, "You can't do this," like she still believed in him. He'd done it anyway, and now he was going to pay a price he couldn't even begin to calculate. Inside the shelter, Maya was gathering the few belongings she had while Dr. Lee checked her blood pressure one more time. "Still elevated but stable," the doctor reported. "I want you resting as much as possible for the next 48 hours. "She will be," Vivian promised. She held out her hand to Maya. "Ready to go home?" Maya looked at her mother, fierce, protective, flawed, but trying, and nodded, ready. As they walked out the back entrance toward a waiting SUV, Maya caught one last glimpse of Derek through the window. He looked lost, confused, like a man who just realized he'd thrown away something irreplaceable. Good, Maya thought with surprising fierceness. Let him feel a fraction of what he made me feel. The twins kicked against her ribs, as if in agreement, and Maya smiled, despite everything. She had her mother back, she had her daughters on the way, and she had a billion-dollar empire behind her. Derek Lawson had made the mistake of his life, and he was only just beginning to understand how big that mistake was. The Chen family penthouse occupied the entire top floor of a building in Pacific Heights, with views that stretched from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Bay Bridge and everywhere in between. Maya had grown up in this space, but walking through the familiar doors after 6 years felt like entering a museum dedicated to someone else's life. "Your room is exactly as you left it," Vivian said, leading Maya down the hallway past walls lined with modern art that probably cost more than Derek's entire house. I couldn't bring myself to change anything. Maya's childhood bedroom was a time capsule: posters from bands she'd loved at 16, her high school soccer trophies on a shelf, photographs of friends she'd lost touch with years ago. But someone had clearly been maintaining it. Everything was dust-free and fresh, the bed made with new linens in the exact shade of blue Maya had always preferred. "Mom," Maya said softly, taking in the preserved shrine to her teenage self. "You kept it like this for 6 years? I kept hoping you'd come home." Vivian set Maya's garbage bag, still her only possessions, on the bed with more care than it deserved. "Every birthday, every Christmas, I'd think maybe this would be the year you'd call. And I wanted your room to be ready." Maya felt tears threaten again. She'd cried more in the past 12 hours than she had in the previous 6 years combined. "I was so stubborn. You were hurt, so was I." Vivian moved to the window, looking out over the city lights. "Your father used to say that you and I were too much alike, both brilliant, both fierce, both absolutely terrible at admitting when we're wrong." She smiled slightly. "He was the bridge between us, the one who could translate my intensity into something you could understand. When he died, we lost our interpreter." "Tell me about him," Maya said, settling carefully onto the bed. "Not the story everyone knows about the car accident. Tell me what he was really like." Vivian was quiet for a long moment. "He was the smartest man I ever met, and the kindest. Everyone thinks I built Chen Biopharmaceuticals alone, but that's not true. Your father was the one who saw the potential in my research. He was the one who encouraged me to think bigger than just publishing papers." Her voice softened. "We met in grad school. I was this serious, driven student who never went to parties or socialized. He was the opposite: charming, gregarious, everyone's friend. He made me laugh, Maya. He made me feel like I didn't have to be perfect all the time." "What happened with the accident?" "Drunk driver ran a red light. Your father died instantly." Vivian's voice was steady, but Maya could hear the old grief underneath. "I was 6 months pregnant with you, finishing my dissertation, and suddenly completely alone. My parents had died when I was in college. Your father's family blamed me for his death, said if he hadn't been driving across town to bring me food because I was working late, he'd still be alive." She turned to face Maya. "They weren't wrong. He died because of me, because I was too obsessed with my research to take care of myself." "That's not true," Maya protested. "You can't blame yourself for a drunk driver." "I blamed myself anyway. And I swore that I would never let anyone make me feel that helpless again. So I took your father's research notes, combined them with my own work, and I built something that would protect us both. I built power, Maya, because power means no one can hurt you." Maya looked at her mother with new understanding. "But it also means no one can reach you." "Yes," Vivian admitted. "And that was the problem, wasn't it? I built these walls so high that even you couldn't get through them. And when you needed me to be present at your soccer games, at school events, I was too busy maintaining the fortress." A knock on the door interrupted them. Dr. Lee entered, carrying a blood pressure cuff and a portable fetal monitor. "I know it's late, but I want to check on you and the babies one more time before you sleep." The examination revealed what Maya had been dreading. Blood pressure is 150/95, doctor, Lee said, frowning at the reading. That's significantly elevated from this morning. How's your head? It hurts, Maya admitted, and I'm seeing spots when I stand up too fast. Doctor. Lee and Vivian exchanged a look that made Maya's stomach clench. What? What does that mean? It means you're developing preeclampsia, doctor, Lee said gently. Not severe yet, but we need to watch you very closely. I'm going to have Dr. Morrison come by first thing tomorrow morning for a full evaluation. In the meantime, you're on strict bed rest. No stress, no excitement, just rest and monitoring. I'm going to have the babies early, aren't I? Maya's hand moved protectively to her belly, where the twins were rolling and kicking. Possibly. At 37 weeks, they're full term. If your blood pressure continues to climb, or you develop other symptoms, we may need to induce labor within the next few days rather than wait for your due date. Vivian's face had gone pale. Is Maya in danger? Are my granddaughters in danger? Not if we monitor her carefully and act quickly if things progress, doctor, Lee assured her. But yes, preeclampsia can be serious if left untreated. The only cure is delivery. She turned back to Maya. I need you to tell me immediately if you have severe headaches, vision changes, pain in your upper abdomen, or if you notice the baby's moving less than normal. Any of those symptoms means we go to the hospital right away. After Dr. Lee left to set up her monitoring equipment in the guest room next to Maya's, Vivian sank into the chair by Maya's bed with uncharacteristic heaviness. I just got you back. I can't lose you. You're not going to lose me, Maya said with more confidence than she felt. And you're definitely not going to miss meeting your granddaughters. They're too stubborn to let a little high blood pressure stop them. They get that from both sides of the family. Vivian managed a small smile. What are you naming them? You never told me. Maya hesitated. Derek wanted to name them Linda and Vivian, after our mothers. Absolutely not, Vivian said immediately. I refuse to share a name with Linda Lawson. Those babies deserve better. Despite everything, Maya laughed. I was thinking maybe Emma and Sophie, after Dad's mother and your grandmother. Vivian's eyes filled with tears. Emma and Sophie Chen. Perfect. She paused. Chen? Not Lawson. Chen, Maya confirmed. I'm done pretending to be someone I'm not. These girls are going to grow up knowing exactly who they are and where they come from. And if anyone has a problem with that, they can deal with you. Damn right they can. Vivian stood, kissing Maya's forehead with surprising gentleness. Get some rest. Doctor, Morrison will be here at 7 a.m., and I want you as calm as possible for that examination. After her mother left, Maya lay in her childhood bed, surrounded by ghosts of her teenage self, and felt the twins shift inside her. Emma and Sophie. Her daughters. The next generation of Chen women who would hopefully be smarter than Maya had been, who would know their own worth from the beginning. Her phone, charged now by one of Vivian's assistants, buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Maya, please. We need to talk. I made a terrible mistake. Derek? Maya stared at the message for a long moment, then blocked the number without responding. Derek had made his choice. Now he could live with it. Across the bay in Portland, Derek sat in Mitchell Stevens' cramped office listening to his family attorney explain exactly how screwed they were. Mitchell was 55, balding, and specialized in small business contracts and real estate disputes. He looked like a man who just realized he was way out of his depth. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, Mitchell said, reviewing his notes. You filed for divorce from your wife while she was 8 months pregnant with twins. You evicted her from your shared home with no warning. You emptied your joint bank account, and you accused her of infidelity with no actual evidence. My mother had evidence, Derek protested. Photos of Maya with Dr. Rahman. They looked very comfortable together. Photos of your wife having lunch with a colleague. Mitchell's tone suggested he thought Derek was an idiot. That's not evidence of infidelity, Derek. That's evidence of two professionals eating food in public. Linda Lawson sat in the corner chair, her arms crossed defensively. They looked intimate. And Maya was always working late, Always at that hospital. What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to think your daughter-in-law was doing her job, Mitchell snapped. He turned back to Derek. And this colleague, Dr. Khalid Rahman, do you know anything about him? Not really. Maya mentioned him a few times. Mitchell pulled up something on his laptop and spun it around. The screen showed a photo of a handsome man in his 40s standing next to another man at what looked like a wedding. The caption read, Dr. Khalid Rahman and his husband Dr. James Chen celebrate their 10-year anniversary. Derek felt his stomach drop. He's married to a man. He's been married to a man for 10 years. This took me 5 minutes to find on Google. Mitchell closed his laptop with barely restrained frustration. So, your evidence of infidelity is lunch meetings with a gay, married colleague. Is there anything else? Any actual proof? She was distant. Linda insisted. She stopped wanting to come to family dinners. She made excuses about being tired or not feeling well. She was pregnant with twins. Mitchell said flatly. Of course she was tired and not feeling well. Mrs. Lawson, I need you to understand something. What you've described isn't evidence of cheating. It's evidence of a normal, high-risk pregnancy. Richard Lawson spoke for the first time since they'd arrived. What about the paternity test Derek requested? If the babies are his, doesn't that prove Maya wasn't cheating? If the babies are his, and I'm guessing they are, it proves she wasn't cheating, which means Derek just destroyed his marriage and evicted his pregnant wife based on his mother's paranoid fantasies. Mitchell turned back to Derek. Did you request a paternity test in writing? Did you put that accusation in any documentation? Derek nodded miserably. It's in the divorce filing. Jesus Christ. Mitchell dropped his head into his hands. Okay, this is bad. But it's not insurmountable. We can claim temporary insanity, emotional distress, miscommunication. Actually, a cool female voice said from the doorway, you can't claim any of those things. Everyone turned to see a woman in an immaculate gray suit standing in the entrance to Mitchell's office. She was Asian, perhaps 40, with the kind of sharp intelligence in her eyes that suggested she'd already won whatever battle was about to begin. Who the hell are you? Linda demanded. Jennifer Park, Senior Counsel at Chen Biopharmaceuticals. She held up a document folder. I'm here to deliver a formal complaint and provide Mr. Stevens with some information he should be aware of before he continues representing the Lawson family. Mitchell stood quickly, his face going red. You can't just barge into my office during a client meeting. Your door was open, and I think you'll want to hear what I have to say. Jennifer moved into the room with the confidence of someone who owned every space she entered. She placed the folder on Mitchell's desk. This is a formal complaint against Derek Lawson for theft of marital assets, abandonment of a pregnant spouse, and emotional distress. We're also filing for emergency custody orders and seeking full medical reimbursement for the prenatal care Mrs. Chen will require, due to the stress-induced preeclampsia she's now developed. Preeclampsia. Derek felt the blood drain from his face. Is Maya okay? Are the babies? Mrs. Chen's medical condition is being closely monitored by a team of specialists. The prognosis would be better if she hadn't spent last night sleeping in a women's shelter after being evicted into a rainstorm by her husband. Jennifer's tone was pleasant, but her words landed like hammer blows. Now, Mr. Stevens, you should know that Chen Biopharmaceuticals retains the services of Morrison, Bradley, and Associates, one of the top family law firms on the West Coast. They specialize in high-asset divorces and have resources that include forensic accountants, private investigators, and medical experts. She opened the folder and spread documents across Mitchell's desk. This is a preliminary financial analysis of Mr. Lawson's business and personal accounts. You'll notice several irregularities. Joint marital funds transferred to personal accounts the morning of the eviction. Credit card charges for hotels during the period. Mr. Lawson claims to have been working late charges that show room service for two, which suggests extramarital activity. And perhaps most interesting, a $15,000 transfer from Mr. Lawson's personal account to someone named Melissa Brooks 3 weeks ago. Derek's mouth went dry. Melissa was a consultant he'd met at a business conference. They'd had coffee a few times. Maybe dinner once or twice. It hadn't meant anything, just a distraction from Maya's constant talk about babies and nursery colors, and how tired she was all the time. "That's a business expense," he said, weakly. "Is it?" Jennifer pulled out more papers. "Because Miss Brooks doesn't work in your industry. She's a yoga instructor. And, according to her social media, which I'm sure Mr. Stevens will enjoy reviewing, she's been posting pictures of expensive dinners and hotel stays, tagged with captions like, 'Thanks to my generous new friend.'" She smiled without warmth. "Should I continue? Or have you seen enough?" Mitchell was rapidly flipping through the documents, his face growing paler with each page. "Derek, tell me you didn't have an affair. Tell me this is all a misunderstanding." "I didn't have an affair," Derek said. But even he could hear how hollow it sounded. "I had coffee with someone, dinner a couple times. That's it." "You gave her $15,000 for coffee and dinner?" Richard Lawson's voice was deadly quiet. "Derek, where did you get $15,000? "From our savings account." "But it's my money too. I earned it." "It's marital property," Jennifer corrected. "And transferring large sums to a woman you were having an inappropriate relationship with while your wife was home pregnant with twins is called dissipation of marital assets. It's grounds for a very unfavorable divorce settlement." She gathered the documents back into the folder. "Now, Mr. Stevens, Chen Biopharmaceuticals is prepared to be reasonable. We'll offer Mr. Lawson one opportunity to settle this matter quickly and quietly before it becomes a public spectacle that destroys what's left of his reputation." "What kind of settlement?" Mitchell asked warily. "Full custody of the twins to Mrs. Chen. Child support calculated at the maximum rate allowed by Oregon law. Reimbursement of all marital funds improperly transferred or spent. A public apology from Mr. Lawson and his family." And Jennifer paused for emphasis. "Mr. Lawson withdraws his request for a paternity test and acknowledges in writing that he made false accusations against his wife." "Absolutely not," Linda said immediately. "We're not admitting to anything." Jennifer turned to look at Linda with the expression one might give an annoying insect. "Mrs. Lawson, I wasn't finished. If these terms are not accepted within 72 hours, Chen Biopharmaceuticals will proceed with a full legal assault that will include civil lawsuits against all 3 members of the Lawson family for conspiracy to commit emotional distress, defamation of character, and harassment of a pregnant woman. We will freeze Mr. Lawson's assets pending resolution of the theft charges. We will contact his employer about the ethical issues surrounding his treatment of his wife. And we will make sure every detail of this case becomes public record, including the lunch photos Mrs. Lawson took, which, by the way, constitute illegal surveillance in Oregon since she didn't have Mrs. Chen's consent to photograph her." The office fell silent. Derek watched his mother's face cycle through denial, anger, and finally fear as the implications sank in. "You can't do this," Linda whispered. "We can do all of this and more," Jennifer replied. "Dr. Vivian Chen built a $4 billion empire from nothing. She has resources you can't imagine and connections at every level of business and government. She's already spoken with the governor of Oregon, a personal friend, about the inadequacy of domestic violence laws. She's already arranged for the Portland District Attorney's Office to review your case for possible criminal charges. And she's just getting started." Jennifer placed a business card on Mitchell's desk. 72 hours, Mr. Stevens. After that, the offer expires and we proceed to war. Choose wisely." She left as suddenly as she'd arrived, leaving behind a silence so thick Derek could hardly breathe through it. Mitchell finally spoke, his voice heavy. "Derek, you need to accept their terms." "No," Linda said immediately. "This is extortion. They're trying to bully us they're trying to avoid a court battle that will bankrupt you," Mitchell interrupted. "Linda, Richard, Derek, I need you to understand something. I handle small business disputes and residential real estate. I cannot go up against Morrison, Bradley and Associates. They have partners who bill at $800 an hour. They have investigators and forensic accountants and expert witnesses. If this goes to court, They will destroy you, and I won't be able to stop them. So, what are you saying? Richard asked quietly. I'm saying you need to hire a different attorney. Someone with experience in high-asset family law. Someone who can at least negotiate better terms than complete capitulation. Mitchell looked at Derek with something approaching pity. And Derek, you need to prepare yourself for the reality that you're going to lose this fight. The question is whether you lose everything or just most things. Derek stared at the business card Jennifer Park had left behind. He thought about Maya sleeping in a shelter, about her developing preeclampsia, about their daughters who would be born into this mess he'd created. He thought about Melissa Brooks and her expensive dinners that had seemed so exciting compared to Maya's constant exhaustion and pregnancy complaints. I want to talk to Maya, he said. If I could just explain. Explain what? Richard's voice was harsh. Explain that you abandoned your pregnant wife because your mother convinced you she was cheating? Explain that you spent $15,000 on another woman while Maya was preparing for your daughters to be born? What exactly would you explain, Derek? I made a mistake, Derek whispered. You made several mistakes, Mitchell corrected. And now you're going to pay for them. The question is how much? Linda was crying now, her perfectly applied makeup running down her face. This isn't fair. Maya lied to us. She pretended to be poor when she was really rich. She deceived our son. She lived modestly, Mitchell said with exaggerated patience. That's not deception. That's a choice. A choice, I might add, that suggests she actually loved Derek for himself rather than his money, which, given that she has access to billions of dollars, is the opposite of being a gold digger. The truth of that statement hung in the air. Maya could have had anything, anyone. Instead, she'd chosen Derek, middle class, ordinary Derek who'd never been special or successful or extraordinary. She'd chosen him, and he'd thrown her away. I need to call her, Derek said, pulling out his phone. I need to at least apologize. She blocked your number, Richard said quietly, showing his own phone screen. I tried to text her an hour ago. The message wouldn't deliver. Derek felt something crack in his chest. Maya had blocked him. She'd cut him off completely, severed whatever connection they'd once had as thoroughly as if she'd never known him. 72 hours, Mitchell repeated. You have 72 hours to decide whether to accept Chen's terms or prepare for war. I suggest you use that time to think very carefully about what you've done and what you're willing to lose to avoid admitting you were wrong. Back in San Francisco, Maya woke from a restless nap to find her mother sitting in the chair by her bed, reading what looked like a legal brief by the light of a small lamp. Mom? Maya's voice was foggy with sleep. What time is it? Just after midnight. Go back to sleep. Vivian set down the brief but didn't leave. Are you staying there all night? I'm making sure you're all right. Dr. Lee is concerned about your blood pressure, and I want to be here in case you need anything. Maya struggled to sit up, and Vivian immediately moved to help her, adjusting pillows with surprising gentleness. You don't have to do this. You have a company to run, a merger to finalize. The company can wait, Vivian said firmly. The merger can wait. You and my granddaughters are what matter right now. Maya felt tears threaten again, always again. I keep crying. I never used to cry this much. You're pregnant, stressed, and processing significant trauma. You're entitled to cry. Vivian brushed hair back from Maya's face. Besides, I've cried more in the past 24 hours than I have in the past 6 years. Turns out we're both human after all. What are you reading? Maya gestured to the legal brief. Strategy documents. Jennifer delivered our terms to the Lawsons tonight. Now we wait to see if Derek is smart enough to accept them or stupid enough to fight. What do you think he'll do? Vivian was quiet for a moment. I think Derek Lawson is a weak man who's been manipulated by his mother his entire life. If it were just him, he might accept our terms. But Linda will push him to fight because she can't admit she was wrong. And that, Vivian smiled coldly, will be her biggest mistake. Maya pressed her hand to her belly, feeling Emma or Sophie. She could never tell them apart by their kicks rolling against her ribs. I don't want the girls to grow up without a father. They won't. Derek will have visitation rights, support obligations, and the opportunity to be in their lives. But Maya, Vivian's voice was gentle but firm. They will never see you treated as less than you are. They will never watch their mother be disrespected or diminished. And they will grow up knowing that the Chen women don't accept cruelty from anyone. Is that what you're teaching them? To be hard? To trust money and power more than people? I'm teaching them to be strong enough that they never have to depend on someone else's kindness for their survival. Vivian took Maya's hand. Your father and I had the kind of love story people write movies about. But when he died, I learned a terrible lesson: love isn't enough. Love doesn't pay bills or protect you from the world or give you power when you need it most. So yes, I'm teaching my granddaughters to be hard when they need to be. But I'm also teaching them that they come from a legacy of women who survived and thrived despite impossible circumstances. Maya squeezed her mother's hand. Tell me more about Dad. Not just the sad parts. Tell me something that makes you smile. Vivian's expression softened into something almost young. He used to sing to you. Before you were born. When I was pregnant and stressed about the business, he would put his hand on my belly and sing these ridiculous made-up songs about what you might be like. Maya Chen. Maya Chen. Smartest baby ever seen. She'll grow up to cure all disease, and probably also split the atom with ease. Vivian laughed. The sound surprised out of her. They didn't even rhyme properly. But he sang them anyway, and you would kick like you were dancing along. I wish I'd known him. He would have loved you so much, Maya. He would have been at every soccer game, every school play, every parent-teacher conference. Vivian's voice caught. He would have been the parent I couldn't be. And maybe if he'd lived, you wouldn't have spent your whole childhood feeling like you came second to the company. You did the best you could, Maya said softly. I understand that now. You were grieving and building an empire and raising a child alone. That's not a failure, Mom. That's a miracle. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Maya's hand on her belly and Vivian's hand over hers. 3 generations of Chen women connected in that small gesture. Mom, Maya said finally, if Derek does accept your terms, if he acknowledges he was wrong and apologizes, would you let me consider giving him another chance? Vivian was very still. Do you want to give him another chance? I don't know. Maybe. He's still the father of my daughters. And once upon a time, I loved him enough to marry him. Maya paused. But I also know I can't ever go back to being the woman who let herself be treated that way. So, I don't know if there's a version of Derek and Maya that could work now that I'm not hiding who I am anymore. Then we'll cross that bridge when we come to it, Vivian said. For now, focus on staying healthy and keeping those babies cooking a little longer. Everything else is just noise. Another contraction hit stronger than the Braxton Hicks Maya had been experiencing. Sharp enough to make her gasp and grab her mother's hand. That hurt. Maya managed when it passed. That really hurt. Vivian was already standing, pressing the call button that would summon Dr. Lee from the next room. How long have you been having contractions? Off and on for hours. But not like that. That was different. Dr. Lee appeared within seconds, still dressed despite the late hour, moving with practiced efficiency. Let's check you, she said, helping Maya lie back. The examination was quick but thorough, and when Dr. Lee straightened, her expression was serious. You're 3 centimeters dilated, she said. And that was definitely a real contraction, not Braxton Hicks. Maya, I think your body is deciding it's time to have these babies. But it's too early. Maya protested. I have 3 more weeks. You're 37 weeks with twins. That's full term. And with your blood pressure continuing to rise, it might actually be safer for all of you if we don't wait. Doctor. Lee turned to Vivian. I'm calling Dr. Morrison and the hospital. If Maya has another strong contraction in the next hour, we're going in for delivery. Vivian's face had gone pale, but her voice was steady. Whatever needs to happen, just keep them safe. As Dr. Lee made phone calls and Vivian held Maya's hand, Maya felt another contraction building slower this time, giving her warning. She breathed through it the way the prenatal classes had taught her, focusing on the pressure and pain and the strange sense that her body knew exactly what it was doing, even if her mind was terrified. Emma and Sophie, her daughters. They were coming, ready or not. And Derek Lawson, the man who'd thrown her out, who'd accused her of lying, who'd chosen his mother's paranoia over his wife's truth, was about to miss the birth of his children. Some mistakes, Maya thought as another contraction began, cost more than money. Some mistakes cost everything.